And welcome back to Creative Thinkers. Again, my name is Miguel Valenzuela, and welcome. Today we have a very special guest, Antwoine Tugerson. He is the director of ballroom dancing, and he is a very interesting individual. Antoine, welcome.
Thank you so much for having me.
So I'm super excited to talk to you because we just had your wife on, and she filled us in on all the super exciting stuff about ballroom dancing. But I want to focus on something a little bit different, because as a director, I'm sure that you have to think about things from a different perspective. What exactly is it that you do?
Well, what I do is I put together basically choreography for quinceañeras, weddings, also in charge of going to competitions, doing showcases. So we basically go around traveling around the world, and we take our students and we make sure that we take care of them, not only just on the dance floor competing with them, but we also have to make sure that we're in charge of making sure they get their hotels, and we make sure they're having a good time. Right. Like even as me and my fiance or my wife Michelle, we take our students sometimes to like a fun dinner place like that they never been to, and then we'll start making videos and fun things that are just like out of the ordinary. So basically you're basically directing the life of ballroom. Like, what is actually maintaining the ballroom life? What does that even mean?
Which is something that I had no idea, right? So I actually met you because you were choreographing the quinceañera dance for one of my daughter's friends. Yes. And that's one of the things that I found really interesting. When I'm part of a quinceañera, not being in it, but going to a quinceañera, I don't realize what it takes to create something like that. Can you walk us through some of the steps that it takes to actually create and choreograph something like a quinceañera event?
Yes, actually. So step one is the planning process. That's always something that you have to do. We always have to sit down and try to get the whole picture of what the choreography or the person wants, right? Mm-hmm. Not just the person paying, and also the person it's for, mm-hmm. right? So we try to put all those ideas together and try to make it become a reality. So it's kind of like making their Disneyland come true, right?
And can you give us an example of like, any one quinceañera that you've been part of and the kind of ideas behind it? Like, I want to have something more formal, or I want to have something less formal, or I want to add something really intricate. How do they decide that? How do you decide that?
Well, let's put it this way. I'll start with the quince that your daughter is a part of. Uh-huh. They wanted to do something that was out of the ordinary, but they said it had to be better than the one that I did last time. Because they recommended,
they were part of it.
Because they were part of it.
Oh, okay,
actually,
okay,
so
okay.
there's a recommendation, right?
Right.
So they were saying, okay, the one that you're going to do this quince for, I want it to be better than the last one,
okay.
right? And they already know that, and they're going to be a part of it as well. So
right.
it was kind of like that's like the overall goal, and then they'll come out with a dream. Like they'll first select their songs that they may have. Sometimes they'll say, okay, what do you think? Like in this case, they had 3 songs ready, but then they said, we don't know what, we trust your feeling because we've seen you do work with us before. Can you pick 2 other songs, but we know it wants to be like Bruno Mars and Pitbull, right? And then so I'll find something that kind of goes along that. The challenging thing I would say is for us as a choreographer is make sure that it flows completely the way that they see it, but also in the best interest of them as well, because I also see some people come with ideas and it doesn't actually flow well, so we paint the perfect picture that they saw.
Like they're too different or something?
Yeah, but then they don't get the response that they thought they were going to get.
Right.
So sometimes we have to interject. A lot of the times I consult with Michelle. That's my wife, right, Michelle. I consult with her a lot because she's she'll tell me, okay, so what is the story behind it? And I'm like, well, the story is this. And she's like, no, but what is the story behind it?
Yeah,
and
because
so
I think it's super important
deeper.
for people to kind of get their idea straight before they move forward with something, right? And there is a deeper story behind everything. That's one of the things that we had talked about before. How important is it for you to have come from a city like Los Angeles? Because you're not local to El Paso.
Yes.
So your experience was what in Los Angeles? The way that you grew up, the influences that you had, the way that you competed against other people?
Yes. Well, being in Los Angeles, it was kind of, I think I'd take a different look than most people who look at Los Angeles,
Right.
because
we're coming from the outside, right?
So
you are coming from the inside.
So how everyone kind of like sees is like, oh yeah, you know, you're going to be creative and you're going to be artsy, or you should be a star, you're going to be Hollywood. But actually the idea is when you're from there, you actually want to be the opposite. Especially I would say maybe our generation, maybe that's just like coming from there's knowing like, you know, everyone is trying to be everything. Right, like trying to be the best or the most money, or you know, the best actor or best actress, or you know, and everyone works really hard. You know, some people come from just, you know, there's actresses who are they're working servant job, not I want to say service jobs. You know, you know, they're working their lives away, but they still are trying to become something that is like, I guess, an idea, or they want to be iconic, they want to be remembered, legendary, right? And I kind of try to stray away from that. And it kind of pulled me in. Does that make sense? Like
it does to a certain degree.
I wanted to run away from being a legend.
Yeah.
I was like, I want to hide and just be along. I want to belong to everything, but I wanted like no one to really see me, but everyone to see me. It's a very complex idea, but like, you know, I didn't want to be really the superstar at first, I would say.
But it's interesting because I think you also said that you were very academic.
Yes.
How did the academic aspect help you become who you are today?
Well, honestly, it's one of the most important things because I have super pride on it, and I think maybe sometimes too much, like my ego and pride kind of kicks in a lot with it. But I mean, I always wanted to reach the perfect grades to the point where I was in like GATE program when I was in like the South, because I travel advanced program. So it's called Advanced Placement in California, but when I was in Louisiana, it was called GATE program, or like or something, or magnet program, magnet program. So I've always tried to be, or at least challenge myself. I don't know if I was always the smartest person, but I wanted to challenge myself as if I would be the smartest person. Right. And so when I did those courses, I wanted to have the perfect grade or have the highest grade. So some people will reach for 100%, but I wanted the extra bonus points too.
Oh wow.
Yes. So going back to how important that is to me, I wanted to literally be like number one.
Plus one.
Plus one, yeah. So it didn't matter if I had the perfect, like maybe 5 of us got the 5.0, right? But I still wanted that 1 point more. I guess I can say I was competitive in that aspect, in education. And I don't know what kind of made that happen for me, but that's something I realized, like, yeah, and I know I always wanted to be the smartest person in the room, and maybe I wasn't, but I wanted to be.
Interesting. How does that correlate to creativity? Because I understand that the more you know, the more you learn, the more you kind of disconnect from things. Did you find that that was more of a connection for you, or was it more of a disconnect for you?
Well, I would say it was more of a connection and disconnection, and I'm gonna clarify what I mean.
Yeah, go ahead.
I built my first robot when I was 7 years old.
Wow.
Yeah, so like when you think of creative, like that's so far from dancing. It was just more for me.
Yeah.
It was more making something happen that I wanted, like a function that I want to see me create something, and it does what I want it to do.
Right.
Like the very basic. But I wanted to make it like the best function. Like I always said, you know what? Put it this way. Let me say my main goal in life was, when I was a kid, was to create a super brain computer to be able to do all the things that we wanted to do, to kind of recreate. So basically when you thought of this brain computer, or whatever you thought of, it will create it for you. So it was basically
like an AI.
An AI, which I thought I was going to be the first AI in the world, which I was so naive. I didn't know they existed. And I was like, 'cause I'm in the generation of like where technology, like, you know, there's beepers, but then I know that, you know, that's like outdated, and I know, you know, there's cell phones, computers, right? So I'm like in between that era, and I wanted to make that thing, and that obviously because I thought I was the smartest person in the world, right?
But I think that absolutely proved that you had that creative element within yourself. And that actually, I think, for most people is something that they miss.
Yes.
What is your opinion on that? Do you think that a lot of people just don't, not that they don't have it, it's there, but they don't tap into it?
Yes, I actually do believe that. I think that every single person, I'm sorry, but I believe in God, And I think that he made every single person very unique. Obviously, the issue is that everyone wants to be like God, but we cannot be him. But we have to also appreciate and respect that everyone does still want to be like that. You know, everyone does want to be a creative person. That is God is creation, and he creates, and that's what you're going to feel in your heart. And I think that we think that because we try so hard, like me, I tried so hard to run away from my family, my parents. I don't want to be a Laker fan. You know, they're like, I'm Lakers, so I was like, I'm a Laker hater.
Coming from California, you have to be a Lakers fan, right?
Exactly, but I was like, I'm anti-Laker hater, and just put that in a further perspective, that's most people, you know, if you feel like you can't really but be something, you kind of run away from it sometimes, and that's why I say the disconnection kind of kicks in, where you start kind of doubting a lot of the things that you're doing, you're not sure why you're doing it, you start feeling, I guess like going into like a more stressed, depressed state, like negative stress, depressed state, because you feel like you're never really good enough. You never met, like I guess, make it to where you actually think that you should be, or you're trying to be something that everyone else thinks that you should be. You join the world, right? You think that personally you're not good enough, or do you think that you're not good enough for the world?
So one of the things is the way that people perceive us, right? And our perception is different for everybody. As a ballroom dancer, how do you think people perceive you?
That's a very interesting question. Well, I would say...
That's what I'm about.
Yes, I love it. Well, I have to kind of take you back. But to my earlier years, I wasn't actually a dancer. Just like I said, my first thing
purely
was
academic.
Purely academic,
so how did that come
sports,
about?
because I had a god brother who was like born 2 days after me.
Oh, wow.
Yes.
Lots of competition there?
I wouldn't say competition. I would say it was actually, it was more like we encouraged each other competitively, right? It was competitive. Like we were competitive against the world.
Oh, good.
Yeah. So,
awesome.
But he always wanted me to be the kind of the best. But there's things I didn't really want to do that he would force me to do. Like we would rollerblade, and I was okay with jumping the 3 stairs. But he was like, but we have to do the 10 stairs. And not just the 10 stairs, the 10 stairs and the extra curve of the sidewalk. And I'm like, what? And
he wanted you to break your leg?
Yeah, and I was like, that's like almost impossible. Like, we barely did the 3 stairs. Why are we doing 10 stairs on the sidewalk? And he would just like, let's go. And then he would just do it. And then he would encourage me. And somehow, I don't know how, I did everything he did. So I was like the second daredevil. I'm like, this is so stupid. You know, let's use education in this. And then there I go, just doing what he did. And like he showed me it was possible, and then I would copy it and I would do it. I'm like, wow, it's capable. Let's like, why not? Can't you do that?
So do you think that his perception of you was, I guess, looking beyond what you thought you were capable of doing and push you towards that? Yes.
And actually, I didn't really think about it until, you know, much later in life, right? At the time, I was just like, you're a daredevil. Like, why are you doing this to us? But it was really cool because that means he believed in me too, you know? And that's the other aspect. Like, he always saw something different than I did. I always saw, like, you know, I was the brains, you know, and he was the sports and tall. Like, I was shorter. Even though I was older, he was taller, right? And we're just 2 days apart. So I felt like, it was like we're twin brothers, but I was like always like, I was like the little, like, you know, the runt of the litter. That's how I felt. Like, I was the runt. And even though and I felt very intelligent, I felt like very secure about myself because I had the education. I guess that gave me my first confidence, was education. And then I knew, like, God kind of blessed me with that because it wasn't, there's no way that I was like, you know, how am I me? You know, like, how am I a human being? How am I like that? That's where I knew, like, yes, there's science and there's, you know, physics and then there's math, but then there's something that's greater than that. There's something that had to choose me in the math equation for me to be who I am and be able to make these decisions and try to be an intelligent person and care about these things.
And as far as caring is concerned, one of the things that I actually saw you doing was teaching 2 young gentlemen, I think they were like 12 and 8 or something like that, how to dance. Now, how important is it for you to bring that to the younger generation? Because it's something I think that there's a huge disconnect in, right? When you're a kid, you're like, I want to play soccer, I want to play baseball, I want to play football, but you don't ever say, hey, I want to be a dancer, right? What's going on there?
Well, I would say, going back to the first story, I actually never thought I could be a dancer, so I would never say that really, like, oh, you know, hey, I want to be a dancer. But I always wanted to be a dancer in my head. I wanted to be good at it, you know, like, I didn't really think I wanted to be a dancer, but in my head, I never said it out loud. I never like in my heart, like as I was building, you know, the robot, I was choreographing. I was putting things together.
And you could see that already.
Yeah, you had to, because like I had to imagine it. Like I had to see this thing before you saw it. It didn't exist.
Right.
This thing, this is just an idea, right? It's just like there's an empty blanket of your brain and a piece of paper, and you have to remember that there's zeros and ones that make it, and create things, and then you have to put the things together and see that it actually works. Like that's beyond you, because you're putting things together. It's dancing it, and then you're watching your robot dance.
Oh wow!
Because you gave it its
I would have
function.
never thought
you trained
that.
it. You put it in the zeros and ones. You gave it its functions. You said, this is what you're going to do if this happens. This is what you're going to do if this happens. So you're preparing that robot or whatever that thing is. And it's the same thing as with the kids that are 12 and 8. You know, you're trying to put it in a program with them, making it, it's like zeros and ones, because the roadmap, I didn't make the roadmap of ballroom dancing. It's already there. You know, people have been doing this for over 100 years, like Michelle was saying.
Right.
For like the Arthur Murray, it's been a company over 100 years.
Really?
Yeah, it's a blessing. They got through the Great Depression. It's actually kind of something I feel kind of charged right now, because we're going through, I believe, something similar in this season 100 years later, because we went through, you know, the swine flu, it was Great Depression, 1920s, and dancing got a lot of people, that's like, you know, Arthur Murray and Fred Astaire got a lot of people moving and caring and being positive and thinking they can do things that people were really like, just like now, there's a lot of depression going on. Like I talked to a therapist student that we have, and he says, you know, I'm sorry that my career is actually getting better. It's not a good thing, because, you know, more people are depressed, and I notice it. So his business is growing, but people are getting sad. But what we try to do is actually build a gap of making people get past that, because dancing already did this. It's not something I'm trying to do, like I'm the first person, or Michelle's the first person who's done this.
Right.
No, Arthur Murray did this 100 years ago. They charge people 25 cents. They give people a newspaper to believe, like just footprints, right? So they do.
Oh yes, I remember that.
Yeah, they'll mail you.
That's
like
the company?
Yeah, they'll mail you just like you know, just like a paper, and then you get a little footprint, and then they'll show you how to do a box, and you say 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and they'll put the numbers and the steps, and they try to make it accessible and very affordable for everyone at that time. And then they made it a business. There was over 100 instructors in one building. It's like such a beautiful thing. Yeah, you never think about that. That's never. That's not here. That's very impossible almost nowadays. Like everyone's spread out. We are spreading. Dancing is growing now, but you will never see that bonding of 100 instructors. Imagine how many students you have to have
if
to
you have
100 instructors in one building.
Yeah.
That is like the most crazy thing I've ever imagined. And what we're just doing is trying to just make sure that happen, like in the 12 and 8-year-old, is I want to see them do the same thing that we're doing. That it's just a roadmap of building, letting them be creative, and then showing that it's okay to be creative in that way, but also have to respect boundaries too, because that's true. They have to learn boundaries, because like one of my students said, you know, so I guess they call me Antoine-ish. They get just like I have a verb right now.
Yeah, they made you into that because of your personality.
I'm a little extra, and they call it Antoine-ish. And one of my students asked me, you know, like so if I'm gonna be like the best dancer, so do I have to be flamboyant? And I was like, well, not necessarily.
It's your style, right?
Yeah, and it's not actually flamboyant, because it's actually, you actually have to understand, flamboyant is like a middle point. What dancing kind of does is give you like kind of boundaries of like, there's lead and follow. There's masculine and femininity, right? And there's no such thing as like really, like there is an in between, where, right, the gray area. But there's a definition, like masculinity and femininity doesn't mean you're a male, female. That's like a language, right? Like if you think about like Spanish, or you think about French, they have masculinity and feminine words.
Can you explain that to us? Because I know that sometimes one can be a leader and the other one can be a leader. Does that correlate to the male, female, or masculinity, femininity thing?
It actually does, but this is the thing. I'm going to try to be clear. My partner Michelle, right? She sometimes leads me, and I have to be the follower. But obviously, I've been training. I always thought I'm going to be the best leader in the world, and I'm going to lead. And so I trained really hard to be a leader. But how can I follow? What does that mean, right? And what I found it to be is leading and following are both leading and following. It's not that leading is just
so it's
leading.
like a circle.
It's definitely a circle. I think it's like yin and yang, right? So it's just like they both fit with each other. There's responsibilities. As a leader, you're in charge of timing and direction. I have to tell the follower when to do it and when. right? When and and how I want her to do it, right? So and I want to say this direction on this time, right? That's all. That's my job, not to force her to do anything. All I have to do is make sure I'm clear on that. As a follower, you're in charge of momentum, right? So you're maintaining the momentum. So a leader can't actually dance as much as the follower can. So if you're chosen to be the follower, or I would say the feminine, like that's how people look at it as a language. The follower, if you think of it as a femininity, you're actually a leader. You're in charge of something. You're not just like letting someone just. You're not a doll.
Roll you around.
Yeah. It's like, I mean, then you'd just be a doll, and then they
Yeah.
just toss you around. But no, they're in charge of their own body. They have to be in charge of their balance, like Michelle was saying, talking about poise and posture. They have to make sure that they can actually stand up at all, or even have the confidence that they can even do it, right? Because if then they'll just never do it, right? So that's something that's really important. As a follower, you have to know, like, no, there's a responsibility for you. You are a leader. You're in charge of the way that you're going to dance. So the leader has to do, like, basically, if I could talk about percentage, because I'm the math.
Please, so we can get a better understanding.
Yeah, we give 25%, and so the lady can do the rest. So to demonstrate the 75%. But your 25% is still 150%, right? You just cannot do 100% or 75%, because then it's basically, if I wanted to move my hand like this, right? For me to get the follower to do that, I have to do less.
Oh, okay. So then you kind of intertwine the two.
Correct.
And then that makes the whole thing move forward.
Exactly. It's a gear, right? So she's responding to me. Or if you want to think about it, it's like if I was talking to a mic, like a mic. So she amplifies my voice. If I want her to do this, I have to do a little bit, and then she will amplify what that means. So so if I say hi, she's basically amplifying hi. Right. She's demonstrating what that would look like. Right. So I can't yell hi and think she's going to be like hi, right back. She's actually going to amplify that voice or that movement. Right. So it's more than what we are actually doing. So before, I thought I had to do all these things as a leader.
Right.
And, I'm like, I'm learning this. I'm learning how to move, and I can do all these things. And then I had to realize. And then so I became a leader. Like, because I was a hip hop dancer first, I was in charge of my own body. I was a soloist first. So I understood, like, I can do anything and everyone would love it, right? But then when I had a partner, everyone was like, Antoine, stop moving.
You need to tone it down a bit.
Calm down, relax.
Right.
Yeah, and I never really understood what that meant until like much later, right? You get older, you start learning, you're like, oh wow, that's such a simple idea. How could I not thought of that? But what they were trying to say is my responsibility it wasn't that I had to be like quiet, I was in charge of something. I was in charge of time and direction, so I had to be very clear. And so it wasn't that I couldn't be do a pop lock move. I just had to make sure I was clear and do it the way that I know that the follower could respond to it. Right. So versus the way.
So it is definitely a dialogue then. It's something where you're constantly communicating one with the other in order to create something bigger for the two of you. Exactly.
And actually, that's a very important thing. That's something I really believe in. That's why I just love like human and connection. Talk about connection, what Michelle was saying. Connection is super, super important in the sense of let's say I'm 100%, let's say that you and I are both like, we're perfect, right? We're perfect human beings, right? I'm at 100%, you're at 100%, and like separately, you're over there and you're creating this amazing world. And I'm over here, I'm creating this amazing world, and they're both perfect. But the cool thing is, if we actually just join together, and we would actually be exponential. And I know everyone kind of knows what exponential means, because everyone wants that with their finances. If you could get exponential anything, that would be like your life. You'll be great, right? So, but that's very easy if you actually work with someone, and that's why I loved working with Michelle. I know I could not do this without her. That's like something super important. I don't think I've ever mentioned that before, like in my career, because I've been very successful as an instructor. But like, I could not have, like, without that extra, that amplification, that other
pillar,
half,
right?
Yes.
The other half is exactly right. And I think it's important because this brings to mind the question, how important is this thing called creativity or thinking outside the box when you are doing what you do professionally?
Well, like I was telling you before this meeting, the interview, we were talking about the different dance styles and things that, like I said, they call me Antoine-ish. I always felt I had like many personalities, I guess you could say. Like my personality was all over the place and it was kind of unfocused. So even though I was smart and intelligent, I was trying to answer everything at once, and like spreading myself too thin.
A little ADD, I guess.
Exactly. I know. Seriously, honestly, I was self-diagnosing myself, saying I was AD. I was like,
you have to do that sometimes.
Everyone's like, my kid is this. I'm like, I believe you because I think I am too, right? I'm like, we're kind of close to the same, right? So, what it actually taught me was that I actually can categorize my personalities. Like now, I can actually become something that's different than myself. I am actually different personalities. When I'm an American Tango, I become American Tango. When I'm a cha-cha, I become a flirtatious cha-cha, right? If I'm doing a salsa, I become the fire salsa Antoine the best I can. And honestly, and that's two different Antoines depending if I choose to be a leader or if I choose to be a follower.
Oh, wow.
Right, because those are two different responsibilities, right? So if I'm a follower, I'm way more fiery as a follower than I am as a leader. Because I can actually be the most expressive version, right? I have to actually go beyond what I imagine because followers can be that expressive, right?
You do have to.
They're carrying the momentum.
Yeah, you do have to do that. For the viewers that are watching us right now, what advice can you give them if they're interested in doing something like you do, which is a dancer, basically?
Yes.
What advice can you give them?
Okay, well, the advice I can give them is definitely, if you think that you can't do it, definitely try it. This is like something I've taught people from the ages of 4 years old to over 100 years old.
Wow.
Even recovering a lady from a stroke who was like 95, and I would literally watch her face come from side, and I just had to keep trusting the process of dancing and the benefits it gives you, and I watched it actually do what it says it does, and it does heal you. Based off you just trying to think about structuring your posture, just think about it. If I'm like always, you know, like this is my natural posture. I like to be a computer engineer. If I have a very uncomfortable natural posture, my organs are not working properly. My stomach is not in the right spot. So I'm going to have other issues that are not going to, of course I'm going to have some health issues until I sit up and I align myself in the right place, put my vertebrae, kind of like yoga, right? It's just the same health benefits, right? If I align myself and I make sure I carry myself in a healthy way, right? But not having my neck sideways and like, oh, why do I have a crick in my neck, right? Why does my voice feel like it's all of a sudden gone, right? Because I'm carrying stress and tension in my shoulder and I don't realize I need to actually release that stress and tension.
So one of the most important things is to relax, right? And through dance we can relax. Antoine, we always run out of time too fast, right?
Worries. Yes,
but I want to thank you for coming and taking your time being with us and talking to us a little bit about dancing.
Yes.
I hope you enjoyed yourself.
I did.
And I want to thank all of our viewers out there for coming in and joining us. Again, my name is Miguel Valenzuela. You're watching Creative Thinkers, and if you guys want to contact me, you guys can email me some information to mvalen31@epcc.edu. Thank you for joining us.